Yes! What's up everyone, and welcome to Lowered Expectations. Thanks for lowering your expectations and hanging out with me here. I do appreciate it. A big thanks to everyone who's been supporting me, whether that's subscribing to my channel, leaving likes on the videos, or getting involved in the comment section. All of that stuff definitely helps, so thank you very much. A big thanks also to everyone who's purchased a heater using my affiliate link. That helps me out, of course, because I get a small kickback. For those of you who don't know, I purchased this heater with my own money. I made some videos, VEVOR saw those videos, asked me if I wanted to work with them, and as a result, we have an affiliate link. What that means is you can go to the description below, click on that link, and if you purchase that heater, it helps me out. Also, there is a promo code VVS10 for $10 off your purchase, or VV promo for 5% off store-wide. That sounds like something you'd be interested in. All the information in the description below. Feel free to check that out. Now for a safety warning. I'm going to be doing some experiments in this video, and I would suggest that you not do the same. I'm going to be trying to burn waste motor oil, among other things. I'm going to be chopping this heater apart, and yeah, don't do it. Follow your manufacturer's recommendations, whether that's the fuel they tell you to burn, the way they tell you to install it, or the way they tell you to operate it. Doing what you see me do could cause damage to your property, loss of property, death, or injury. So just don't do that, okay? Those of you who saw my last video will know that I've been having issues starting the heater and it's been flaming out. Most of the time this would mean that there was carbon inside of the burn chamber, but I've looked inside of the burn chamber and I can't see anything. Later on in the video, we're actually going to be cutting the burn chamber open in the main burn area and taking a look inside. But before we get to that, I want to show you guys footage of me struggling with this heater because, well, it's exciting. Watch and you'll see. Alright, we're at 196. I would rather that fuel line not be right there, but it is. As you will see in the next clip, I decided to mount the heater upright, running the exhaust down through the shelf. I did this for a few reasons. For those of you who saw my last video, you will know that my exhaust had a bunch of kinks in it. Some people were concerned that this is what was causing my issues. And so in order to get those kinks out, I put the heater upright, ran the exhaust down through the shelf, and now it has a nice gentle curve to it. That's running on diesel. What the heck? Yeah, it's running on pure diesel right now. I'll switch it over to Alpine mode. It's the next day. I don't know what's going on with the heater, but I tried to get it running all day yesterday. I messed around with it, and finally I got it going, and it ran for a couple of hours. I'll show you how much fuel it's burned. And then the temperature started to plummet sometime around, I think, 9 p.m. And so at that point I just gave up on it. That's how much fuel it's burnt. And so yeah, it didn't run for very long. I tried running it on pure diesel even, and it was acting up. So there's something weird going on, either with the modifications that I've done to the porting, or yeah, I don't know, maybe it built up a huge amount of carbon on the first startup and now it needs to be cleaned up again. I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna take a look and see what's going on. Well, there's not a problem with that, which just makes sense because I was burning diesel. A lot of people seem to think that these systems run pressurized and that by running hard line, you're going to get super injection onto the onto the wire, onto the mesh, and that it's going to make the heater work perfect. That's not right for a few reasons. One is no matter what you run up to this line, unless you change this line here and put some sort of small end on it, you're not increasing the pressure in any way, because however much pressure you deliver to here, if you use a smaller line, heavier, whatever line, when it gets to here, that pressure is just going to be dispersed, and the inlet where the fuel actually comes in, there's no nozzle whatsoever. All it is here is a little opening, and that opening sits up against this mesh, and the fuel simply drools in. It doesn't squirt in, it doesn't spray in, it doesn't come in under any pressure. There's nothing, you can't have pressure unless there's something holding it back. And there's nothing holding it back. There's just an open hole that is bigger than the size of the fuel line. So, no pressure. All right, the heater's going back together. I removed the baffle. I dug the JB Weld out of all the holes that I drilled around the surface under the baffle. So there's 7 holes open there now. And I reopened the hole for the initiation, the flame initiation around the glow plug. So I don't know why I never thought of this, but there's been a lot of talk about how the used motor oil has a lot of contaminants in it. And I've made the assumption that I'm running really crappy oil, and that's part of the reason why I'm having problems. I'm running air-cooled lawnmower oil, and lawnmowers are really hard on that oil. So anyway, a lot of jibber jabber to say that I am going to burn some clean motor oil and see what the outcome of that is. And if the outcome of burning the clean motor oil is very similar or the same as burning the used motor oil, then we know it has nothing to do with the fact that it's used and dirty, and we know that it's simply because oil does not like to burn the same as diesel. We already know that oil doesn't like to burn the same as diesel, but is that what all the contamination or the leftover crud is from? Or is it, is it from contamination that comes out of whatever engine the thing has been running in? I just tried to restart it. The battery in the camera went dead, and when I came back it had an error 6, which is a fan motor code. So I do know that my fan motor needs replacing, so let's hope that it makes it through a couple of tests. Oh, come on, baby. Yes! I'm glad I got it on film this time. It did the same thing last time, but I didn't have the camera running. from being completely blocked off on the inlet to completely open now with no baffle, holes drilled out in the chamber and holes drilled out in the flame initiation hole, and it still does the same thing. So I don't know. I do know that it makes for some exciting backfires, but it'd be nice if it made heat too. I have absolutely no idea what happened, but it is staying between 198 and 200. It sounds pretty good, and it's running on waste motor oil. The smoke coming out of the exhaust, or the lack of smoke coming out of the exhaust, is pretty promising. Now I'm wishing that I had it set up more permanently, because I don't really want to leave it run overnight, especially with the way the exhaust is. That is all wood around there. Look what I found, some aluminum tape. So I am going to clean up around that hole and then put some tape around it. Never said those words before. I'm definitely not trying to tell anybody to do this, and I'm not trying to say that this is safe, but it's more safe than it was. So let me show you what I did. I took some of that aluminum tape, and that's what I did. The heater has stopped working as per usual, but I will spare you guys the details and the footage of that because you've seen and heard it all 100 times before. So let's just jump ahead to where I have the burn chamber out and I'm talking about what modifications I'm going to make to it. All right, so in the middle of cleaning this thing up, I've decided that I'm going to do a modification to the burn chamber. I've seen a couple of different videos where people have cut these apart, basically destroying them. But one person actually made me a video and showed me how they had cut the back off of their burn chamber so that they could get at it and clean it. I'm going to do it a little bit different. What he had done is cut the back of it off. I don't know if his burn chamber was a little different than mine, because I don't really have room to cut it off on the back. I would have to cut into the area with that the glow plug threads into. His seemed to stick out more. So what I'm actually going to do, I have a lathe, and so I'm going to put this in my lathe and I'm going to try to remove this weld so that I can actually slide this tube out. I'm not sure if that is sleeved together, like if the tube actually goes inside of this piece. If it does, that will be really nice. That'll make it easier for me to sort out later. But the reason why I'm going to do this is because it'll make it easier to clean out. Also, a bunch of people have been telling me that the shelf in here comes out. Mine doesn't. This will give me a better look to see if it doesn't because it's welded or it just got stuck from being deformed or carbon. I'm going to give it a quick turn on here and see if it's spinning at all true. Hopefully oil doesn't fling out of there at me. That actually seems to be running really true. So I'm going to take one more look at it to make sure we're seated. Okay, so I cut the burn chamber open, and what I found inside is probably, I'm gonna guess, why this thing isn't working properly. So yeah, this is how it goes together, like this. There's a whole lot of garbage in there. A whole lot. So I'm gonna dig this stuff out, and then I'm gonna try to figure out what I'm gonna do to keep this back together. I've been telling people in the comment section for a little while now that my burn chamber didn't have a wire mesh in it, and I need to make a correction and apologize to those people. My burn chamber does in fact have a wire mesh. It's just so covered in carbon that I couldn't feel that it was there. So I was poking in through these little slots in the back here, and I can't feel any mesh. It feels perfectly smooth because there's so much carbon covering it. And this carbon I've been digging away for half an hour now and not making much progress. I've just pulled out the big chunks of this stuff. Here is one, it's pretty nasty. And here is the other one. If I would have cut this apart the very first time that it clogged up, I probably could have got that thing out in one, maybe not. Maybe it's spot welded to the outside. Oh yeah, I think it's spot welded. I was gonna say I could probably have gotten it out in one piece and reused it, but now that I take a closer look, I can see that in fact it was spot welded. Because I don't plan on taking the flange off of the chamber, I'm actually going to put a couple tack welds on it to hold it in place. I've got my handy dandy TIG welder here. I am going to put a couple of tacks on this piece on the flange because I don't ever plan on taking this part off. It doesn't need to come off. I didn't mean to take it off, so I'm going to put it back. Welding is so much fun, I kind of want to weld the whole thing on, but that's just silly. Alright folks, I'm trying something here. It might not work for several reasons, but I'm going to show you guys anyway. We'll see what happens. I've got a stainless steel hose clamp, and it doesn't matter that it's stainless steel, but it does make it sound official. And I've got the burn chamber tube and whatever we're going to call this thing. Put the hose clamp, the stainless steel hose clamp, on over there. The chamber thing goes on like that. It sits on there. And then I need to rotate the hose clamp to the spot where the exhaust is, because that's the only place where there's any clearance. And then I need to tighten up the hose clamp. Now this might not work for a couple of reasons. One is that the hose clamp is blocking the exhaust port, or partly blocking the exhaust port, and so it's going to try to trap gases. The other reason why it might not work is because I've actually had to slide it about 3 millimeters this way, so the tube has gone closer, and that means that that little shelf in there has gotten 3 millimeters closer, which means there's less room for air to escape out through there. So I'm going to put this together and test it. I don't have the mesh in there. I fully expect this not to work. But of course, all of you wonderful people are going to be following your manufacturer's recommendations and not modifying your heater in any way. But if you were to take your life into your own hands and decide that you were going to do this modification of cutting your burn chamber open, then I need to step in here. This is future Joel talking. Still haven't burnt my garage down. And I wanted to tell you guys that if you're going to put your burn chamber back together, you're going to have to make some shims. So I have a couple of shims here. About 3 millimeters worth of shim. I can't find my calipers right now for some reason. I've been looking for them for days. But the diameter here is slightly larger than the diameter here. So what I did at first is used a hose clamp. Where's the hose clamp? So this is the hose clamp that I use. Slide it on over here and you tighten that up and it kind of holds it together. The problem is that it doesn't get as tight on the tube as it does on the flange. If you're doing this, you will see this yourself. So what I did after this is I made a couple of shims, rolled them up out of a piece of steel, and now when I put this together, I put those shims first on the, the tube part of the chamber, and then I put that on like this. I slide the shims down into place, and then I drop the hose clamp on. Another correction that I want to make is that the hose clamp does not have to be lined up with the exhaust port. What I actually do, there is this one tab that sticks out. The rest of them are flush with the surface. There's the one tab that sticks out, and what I do is I put the head of the screw right by that, and then I tighten it up. And because of the way the fins are shaped inside of the heat exchanger, I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but there's a slightly recessed area for the fins around here, and that gives clearance for the hose clamp. So of course, once again, none of you people are going to try this. That would be reckless and dangerous and irresponsible and against your manufacturer's wishes. But if you were to do something so crazy, that's how I would do it. Every now and then I do an experiment with this heater and I get really excited about it, and this is one of those times. I fully expect for this just to not work at all, but I'm really excited to see what happens. There is a possibility that it could work, so I've got everything hooked up. I'm just going to prime the line and then test fire it and see what happens. I suspect, oh my goodness, no way. I was gonna say I expect that it won't light because there's no mesh. Holy crow. Wow. Okay, don't get excited yet, because when it tries to speed up is when that hose clamp could cause a problem. It could start blocking the exit, so we won't know till we have it up to full power if it's actually gonna work. But this is the best that it's worked in days. I'm not plugging the inlet, but I have my thumb ready just in case. Wow, it's working. I mean, so far. How is it working? It could be because the gap is smaller and it's blocking some of the airflow. We'll see what happens when it gets up to heat. I'm gonna shut up now. I should jump in here and say as a reminder, I didn't really clean out the heat exchanger. I cleaned out the burn chamber, but not the heat exchanger. I did hit it with a wire brush actually, but I haven't had to choke it yet. It's actually working. All that intake flutter is gone. So, I was worried that it wouldn't be able to get up to heat because of the modifications that I made. But that's definitely hot enough. I'm gonna bump it up to setting 6 now and see what happens. Still climbing. This is where we find out if that gear clamp gets in the way. Still nice and quiet and smooth. No funny noises. All right. Diesel off. Waste oil. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Waste oil off. 1, 2. We are 15 minutes into testing. 15 minutes since startup, that is. And I now have it switched over to the waste oil mix, which is 1/4 diesel and 3/4 waste oil, minimal filtration, and the modified burn chamber. It seems to be holding a fairly steady temperature. I'm gonna have to give it a while because we did just switch over the waste oil from the diesel. What have we learned from this experiment? Well, to start with, your heater is going to start hard, flame out, have all kinds of exciting backfires, shoot flames out the exhaust if your main burn area is clogged up and you don't do something about it. Also, quite surprisingly, the heater will run perfectly fine without any mesh inside of the burn area. Now, we haven't run it long enough. Maybe even with diesel, this would cause some sort of issue down the road with carboning up or something. But I am quite surprised it actually got up to heat and is running quite normal. What I do is basically switch for 5 seconds, switch back to the diesel for 5 seconds, and then I go 10 seconds on the waste oil, 5 seconds on the diesel, 15 seconds on the waste oil, 5 seconds on the diesel, and I keep going back and forth like that until I get to 30, and then I just turn it on and leave the waste oil run. So now I'm going to leave this burn and come back, and I guess the next thing you guys will see is me saying that this either worked or it didn't. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. I do appreciate it. If you liked what you saw, remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more of this content, be sure to subscribe. A big thanks to everyone who's been getting involved in the comment section and leaving me suggestions, tips, safety warnings, all of that stuff. I do appreciate it. In the next video, we are going to see what the results of this test are, and we're also going to do some other testing. I'm not sure if it's going to be the next video, but as I mentioned earlier in this video, we are going to test burning new motor oil. The reasoning behind this is that a bunch of people, including myself, made the assumption that a lot of the buildup inside of the chamber is from contamination in the oil that I'm using. So if that is the case and I burn new motor oil, then we should be left with no buildup inside of the chamber, or at least very little. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your guesses? I'm from the future, so I already know, but what are your thoughts? If you guys are interested in picking up a heater that is similar to mine, there is an affiliate link in the description below. If you decide to purchase a heater using that link, it helps me out. I get a small kickback. Also, there is a promo code, which is VVS10 for $10 off your purchase, or VV promo for 5% off store-wide. If you guys are interested in any of that stuff, all that information in the description below. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for getting involved. I appreciate it. See you next time.